संसारदावा नललीढलोका त्रणाय कारुण्यघना घना त्वम्
संसारदावा नललीढलोका त्रणाय कारुण्यघना घना त्वम्
प्राप्तस्य कल्याण गुणनवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
प्राप्तस्य कल्याण गुणनवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
महाप्रभु कीर्तन नृत्य गीता वादित्रमाध्यान् मनसोरसेना रोमाञ्चकाम्पाश्रुतरङ्गबाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतान्मन्दिरमजनादो युक्तश्च भक्तांश्च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो स्वदन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घम्
चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो स्वदन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घम्
कृत्यैव तृप्तिं भजतो सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
भजतो सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना
तवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना
प्रतिक्षण स्वधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलिसिधै यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया
निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलिसिधै यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया
तत्रातिदाक्षा ततिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
ततिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे युक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव शब्दी
साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे युक्तस्तथा
किन्तु प्रभुर्या प्रियैव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैर्युक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव शाब्दी प्रभु
साक्षाद्धरित्वेन किन्तु
प्रभुर्या प्रिया एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
किन्तु प्रभुर्या प्रिया एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
यस्य प्रसादाद् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसादो
ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद
श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंदा
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Rama 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 Hare
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare
Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe जगन्नाथा बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा जय सुदर्शना जय सीताराम 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 जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह
जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह
जय गौरनिताय 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 जय गौरनिताय
जय गौरनिताय 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 जय गौरनिताय
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय विश्वपाद परमहंस प्रभाजकाचार्य स्तोत्र शिष्यमार इस्कॉन प्रतिष्ठा विविधि सांस्तवकाचार्य वैष्णव शिरोमणि गौर प्रियजन कृष्ण प्रेम भक्ति दत्त पतित पावन His divine grace Abhay Charavina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patitu Udhari ki jai Shri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu ki jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji ki jai Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindi ki jai Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai Jai Premanama Sankirtaneka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinanda Nishman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mavanana Avatar ki jai Golokera Pramadhana Nam Sankirtan Jaga ki jai Jugodharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai Brihat Nidanga Trends Nentul Book Distribution Seva ki jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopina Radha Kund Syamakund गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय श्री ब्रज भूमि वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय देलोशिप श्री शिवराज अनिल माधव की जय श्री माया पुनपदीप एक चक्र धाम की जय परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम चित्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु स्मृति सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कर श्रृंगरे भगवान की जय जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय श्री मथुरा रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे हरि बोल all glories to assembly bodies all glories to assembly bodies all glories to assembly bodies all glories glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga Hरि बोल
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Prahlad Halad Hadayine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Silatan Kanakalaye
Jaya Silatan
Ito nasimha parato nasimho.
Ito nisinga parato nisinga.
Yato yato yami tato nasimho.
Jaya jato jato jami tato nisinga.
Bahir nasimho hirayem nasimho.
Bahir nisinga hridayem nisinga.
Narashim abadim sharanam prapadye.
Narasimha madin saranam prapade.
Tava kara kamara vare nakam abruta shringam dalita hiyanya kashipu tanu bringam kesavadita narahari rupa jajagadi sahare Jaya Jagadisa Hare Jaya Jagadisa Hare
Sabakara kamala bade naka adabhuta siya adita ilanaka situ anubringa kesavadita narari rupa jagadisa hare jagadisa
Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisa Hare Jaya Jagadisa Hare Jaya Jagadisa Hare
Kesavadita narari rupa jai jagadisa hare jai jagadisa
Jaya Nasimhadev Jaya Nasimhadev Jaya Nasimhadev Jaya Nasimhadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Gurudev Jaya Gurudev Jaya Gurudev Jaya Gurudev
जय श्री श्री भक्ति पद सर्व विघ्नाशन कर्ण सिंहरे भगवान की जय जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय गौर प्रमानंदे श्री वृंदायै तुलसी दिव्याय प्रियै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवे सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवे सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः वृंदायै तुलसी देव्याय प्रियायै केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदे देवे सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः निष्माति तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
जे तोमार शरण लो तारा वांछा पूर्णा हो।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वांछा पूर्णा।
कृपा कोरी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुम्हें कृपा कोरी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
मोराए विलास कुंजे दियो वा। नयने हेरिबो सदा युगल रूप राशि। এই নিবেদনা ধারো সখীর অনুগত করো। सेवा अधिकार दिए करो निज दासी। दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होय। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा न भासी। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा न भासी। यानी कानी च पानी ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे।
कानि कानि सपने Brahmatarikani sa Tanitani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pare Pare
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani kani sa papani Brahmatarikani sa Tanitani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pare Pare
यानि कानि तपपानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani kani sa papani Brahmatarikani sa Tanitani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pare
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
जय तुलसी महारानी की जय
Jai Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradedeve Satyavattai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradedeve Satyavattai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradedeve Satyavattai Namo Namaha. जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की। O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes short from you, that wish is fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kali damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always swim in love with Shri Radha, Govinda, Srimati Tulasi Maharani, bring the Devi ki jai. Let's remember the 10 offenses against the chanting of the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, to blaspheme the devotees who dedicate a life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2, to consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4, to blaspheme the very scriptures or scriptures, songs of Vedic version. 5, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6, to give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9, to instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10, to not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned soul. Vancha kalpatarubhyacha Jananta Koti Vaishnavrindi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanamajanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nivapanam Shreyakari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Ita Drusitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaiva Midishamya Jani Nanuraga Trinadapi Shunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vaja garishakamaye mama janmani janmanishari bhavatar bhaktira itukitvayi oi nandatanuja kinkaram paritam abhisame bhavambudo kripaya tava pada pankaja stita dhuli sadrisham vichintaya nayanam galora shudharaya Varanam gada gada rudaya gira Pulakari chitam vapukada Tavanama grahane bhavishyati Jugaitam nimishena Chakyusha pravrusa itam Sunya itam jagata sarvam Govinda Slishava padaratam pinastumam Adarshanaar marmahatam karotuva Jata tatava vidadhaturam pata mat pranatastu saivana para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shmate Bhakti Vedanta Swamine Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunnavadi Patsatyari Satarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life with repeated birth and death. His Sankirtan moment is the primary benediction for humanity at large, because his praise will raise the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which all is anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord and stroll in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your casual devotion, service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I've fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the yellow feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Will my voice choke up? Will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, failing your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he hundreds me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Kyastakam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vandana Mangal Charan Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantikam Bandiyam Shri Guru Shri Jota Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sattvitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamcha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunnavadi Patsatyari Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhana Videvi Deitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjo Jala Primadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Rinatarine Rupanuga Virudhapu Siddhanta Dvantarine Namo Guru Kishoraya Sakcha Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambhode Padabhujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchit Anandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumitsvam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarva Bhuma Sri Jagannatayate Namaha Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vadanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Panchatattamakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavatara Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Jayatam Suratupangur Mama Mandamatir Gatir Masarvasya Padam Bhujuradha Madanamohano Divyavindaranyakapadmadha Shmar Nagara Singashanastu Shmaradha Shila Govindarevo Prishtalibi Shivamanusmarami Shmanurasara Sarambhivam Shivata Tatastita Karshan Venusanar Gopir Gopinata Shriyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrisabhanu Sutedevi Pranamami Haripe Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Guru Vandan Mangala Charan
Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantharaja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Bhaskatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today I'm going to speak a few different things that I learned while I was in India. And yesterday we were talking about what is pure devotional service. So one issue that came up in India that I spoke a lot about and seemed to resonate a lot with the people there was the idea that why did Alexander the Great, Muhammad Ghazni, the Mughals, the Pathans or the Afghanis, and eventually the British, why did they invade India? Why didn't they invade like Siberia? Or why didn't they invade Russia? So different people gave different answers, but the correct answer was that India was the richest country in the world at that time. And the first invasions of the Muhammad Ghazni was about 1,000 years ago. And then after that, before that, the Greeks invaded India. So we see that India was the richest country in the world and was exporting all kinds of things to European countries and other countries. But it didn't have internet. It didn't have industries. It didn't have any modern technology. And basically most people lived in villages that were self-sufficient. And so how come it was so rich and prosperous? It's an important question to ask. They had a higher technology than what we have today. And that's explained in the 3rd chapter, 10th verse, 11th verse, 12th verse, 13th verse. So when I explained it, now I'm going to explain it in more depth now, but when I explained this in these classes I was giving, people were amazed because how was it that India was so rich? Right? And they didn't have any factories. They didn't have pollution. They didn't have hospitals. And they didn't have cars. They didn't have big bulldozers. But yet, they were rich, and they were prosperous, and they were healthy, and they had the Seminole family. That means that in these villages, you would have sometimes 3, 4, 5 generations of family members living and working cooperatively together. And then not only the Seminole family is working cooperatively together, but the whole village was working cooperatively together. And they had their own educational system, and it was free. They had a free educational system. People didn't have to pay for their kids to be educated. And many of the kids would take up the trade of their parents. So they would be trained by their own parents for their future, let's say, work. And they grew their own food. They had fresh milk from their own cows. And they were healthy. So, therefore, what is the explanation for this? Well, they had a higher technology than what we have today, a much better technology. And it was based on this 3rd chapter, 10th verse, and 11th and 12th, 13th verse, where it says, Sahayagya Prajasristva Purarava Prajapati Ananya. One second. Ananya Parsadvistvad Vam Esavoksvistakamaduk, which means, now this is a verse spoken by Brahma. It's in the Bhagavatam. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. And it says, in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures, it's referring to Lord Brahma, sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna, or sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. Now, this is the whole program that God has for living entities in the material world. In other words, there are 2 possibilities for living entities in the material world. One is, with all the assets of their body, meaning the 5 material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, ether, and then the 5 senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and then the 5 working senses, arms, legs, tongue, genital anus, and then the 5 objects of the senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and feeling. So that's 20, and then the 3 subtle senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, and then the 24th element is the Mahatattva, or the Pradhana, the sum total of all material creation. So these are the material elements. And above that is the 25th element, which is the soul, the individual soul, and the 26th element, which is the Paramatma. So this is the whole body, which is made up of matter and spirit. Now, modern education, modern science, is only dealing with the body. It ignores the spirit. So that means they can never really have full knowledge, because they're ignoring 3/4 of Krishna's domain. 1/4 is the material world, and 3/4 is the spiritual world. This is why Albert Einstein was unable to finish his most important research, which was the unified field theory of matter and energy, because he was only studying 1/4 of reality. So therefore, yesterday we did explain that verse, that is the 7th chapter, 2nd verse, which says, that, let me just get it here. The second verse is Jnanam teham cha vijnanam. Idam vakshyami sesataha yajyatva nehapyuho nyaj gyatavyam avasishyate. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So, phenomenal, well, you know what that means. It's everything you can see. Numinous, you don't really know what it means. I'll explain. It's everything you can't see, but exists. Now, there are many more things that we don't see that exist than those things that we do see that exist. So, there are two things that we don't see exactly, but we have a little bit of knowledge of, and they are gravity and electromagnetic waves. That's all the scientists have ever discovered in the last 1,000 years of scientific research. There are many more unseen things and seen things that the scientists don't know about. So, how would Einstein be able to finish the unified field theory of matter and energy if he only has access to 1/4 of reality? See, that's why he couldn't do it. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel was invented thousands of years ago, and we don't have to reinvent the process by which people can be liberated from birth and death. That was explained 5,000 years ago by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. But of course, all the dumbbells, they ignore the Vedic literature, which has the solution to all the problems of life, and explains that there are two realities. One is phenomenal reality, and the other is the numinous reality. Numinous means what you can't see. So, therefore, this verse, 3:10, the purport says, the material creation by the Lord of creatures, or Vishnu. So now, when it says the Lord of all creatures, Krishna gave knowledge to Brahma to be the secondary or subordinate creator of the material world. He's not the primary creator. Krishna is, or Vishnu. So it says here, the material creation by the Lord of creatures, Vishnu, is a chance offered to the conditioned souls to come back home, back to Godhead. All living entities within the material creation are conditioned by material nature because of their forgetfulness of their relationship to Vishnu or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here, there's two things that are explained here. One is that a human being that has a material body and a spiritual soul has two choices in life. Either they can use the body and the mind, intelligence, and the ego to engage in sense gratification, or they can use these assets, and they're tremendous assets, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, mind, intelligence, ego, to understand their relationship with Krishna and go back to Godhead, become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So those are the two possibilities for every human being. And unfortunately today we see that 99.9% of all people in the world have chosen the first option, to use these highly developed senses, the gross senses and the subtle senses, only for sense gratification. Therefore, it's impossible for them to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. This is how serious the problem is of existence today in the material world. And it's basically because of education. It's not really education, it's indoctrination to remain a prisoner in the material world. That's what it actually is. It is not really education. Education is how you become free from the cycle of birth and death. Ignorance is how to remain in the cycle of birth and death. Now, we don't really, I mean, so many people would argue with me that, what are you talking about? We do this, look at all the scientists have done. Well, wait a minute. We already said that India was the most prosperous, most successful, most richest country in the world 1,000 years ago, without any industry, without any modern education, without any technology or so-called materialistic technology. There was some kind of materialistic technology going on previously, but that was only by the Asuras. They were building types of airplanes and bombs and things like that, using their magical powers. So they were producing things like today the demons are producing, bombs and airplanes and rockets and things like that. But the Vaishnavas were not involved in anything like that. They didn't need it. They had this higher technology. And now, what do we mean by higher technology? Well, it's based on this verse. I'm going to finish reading the purport in a minute. But we have examples of it. Like, for example, Sanjaya, he's sitting in Delhi, or Hastinapur, talking to Dhritarashtra and explaining to him in real time what's happening in Kurukshetra, which is like 300-400 miles away. And he's explaining word for word what Krishna is speaking to Arjuna and the questions that Arjuna is asking Krishna. And now, how did he do that? There's no television, there's no internet at that time, there's no radio, there's no telegraph, nothing. But yet he's singing perfectly and repeating perfectly, word for word, what Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. So there was no internet at that time. There was the Krishna net. And that Krishna net goes through the heart where Paramatma is present. So we see there's a different connection that it's inbuilt in the human body, because Krishna, in the form of Paramatma, is present in the heart of everyone. So therefore you have like the Patanjali yoga system. The whole purpose of Patanjali's yoga system is connecting to the Paramatma. Now, you would think, well, wait a minute, why should it be so hard? It's right there in our heart. Well, when the doctors do heart surgery, they don't see Paramatma. They don't see Jivatma. So you have to have the eyes to see, just like you have to have a cell phone to pick up electromagnetic waves. But you have to have the eyes to see these things. Now, how do you develop those eyes? Well, yesterday we spoke that the material world is based on sense gratification. And spiritual world, or the spiritual life in this world, is based on sense purification. So there's a difference between sense enjoyment or sense gratification and sense purification. So Krishna consciousness is the process of sense purification. And material life is the process of sense contamination, or sense, contamination. So, therefore, in the 11th chapter, 54th verse, Krishna explains, Bhakyabam abhijananti yavanyaschasmi tatpata tato mam tatvato yatva vishitetad anantaram. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So here is an explanation of how you can actually see Paramatma, or see Krishna. It says, only by undivided, meaning 100%, 24 hours a day, 365 days, 366 days on the leap year, engagement in devotional service. Can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So therefore, it also says, Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Devi Tata Kuru. Tasyaite katita hiartak prakasante mahatmanaha. One who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord and is directed by the spiritual master, in whom he has similar unflinching faith, can see the Supreme Personality Godhead by revelation. So this is not based on mundane education. This is based on spiritual revelation. That's the process of knowledge in spiritual life. Revelation means it's revealed to us. So, how do we know that? Well, that's explained in 10th chapter, 10th verse. Te samsatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayanti te. So what does it say? It says, 10th chapter, 10th verse. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So this is what we should teach our children. This is the technology that we should follow if we want to be successful in life. That means, what is success in life? It doesn't mean you're rich. It means that you're liberated in this lifetime from the cycle of birth and death. Even before death, you're liberated. So that's what's called sense purification, as opposed to sense gratification or sense contamination. So the majority of people today are living in the fairy tale land of sense gratification. And they're suffering like anything. And they're in anxiety. Just like I gave a lecture in this university in India, and I spoke about these things. And then I asked, are there any questions? The questions that we got were very eye-opening and very disturbing. Most of the kids were asking questions about how they could overcome stress and frustration. They are suffering. And then the next day, I addressed an hour after that class, I addressed the entire faculty, and I said, you got a major problem in this university. And I read the questions that the kids were asking me. And they already knew about it. That's why they invited me and myself and Veda Narayan to regularly give classes in that college, because they know they have a big problem. The kids are frustrated and they're not happy due to all the stress that they're subjected to in a highly competitive material world. So we see how modern technology is ruining people's lives, and ancient technology supported people's lives and helped them attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death and live a happy, prosperous life, an easy life. Now, why is it easy? Now we're going to explain that. So let's go back to 310, where it says, all living entities within the material creation are conditioned by material nature because of their forgetfulness of their relationship to Vishnu or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic principles are to help us understand this eternal relationship, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaisha sarvir aham eva vedya, which means the Lord says that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Him. In the Vedic hymns, it is said, Patim Vishvas Yat Meshwaram. Therefore, the Lord of the living entities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, second canto, 4th chapter, 20th verse, Srila Sukadeva Goswami describes the Lord as Pati in so many words. Pati means father. The Prajapati, or the father of all living entities, is Lord Vishnu, and he is the Lord of all living creatures, all worlds, and all beauties, and the protector of everyone. The Lord created this material world to enable the conditioned souls to learn how to perform yagyas, sacrifices for the satisfaction of Vishnu, so that while in the material world, they can live very comfortably, without anxiety, and after finishing the present material body, they can enter into the kingdom of God. That is the whole program for the conditioned soul. By performance of yajna, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and become godly in all respects. In the age of Kali, the Sankirtan yajna, meaning the Sankirtan sacrifice, the chanting of the names of God, is recommended by the Vedic scriptures, and this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all men in this age. Sankirtan yajna and Krishna consciousness go well together. Lord Krishna, in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya, is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32 as follows, with the special reference to the Sankirtan Yajna. Krishna Vanyam Chisa Krishna Sangapangastu Parasitam Yajnai Sankirtana Purir Yajanti Mam Sumedasaha. In the age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates, by performance of Sankirtana Yajna. Other yajnas prescribed in the Vedic literatures are not easy to perform in this age of Kali, but the Sankirtan Yajna is easy and sublime for all purposes, as recommended in Bhagavad Gita, also 9.14. Okay, so here we have the statement made by Sukadeva Goswami, and in which Krishna originally sends forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, or for himself, and bless them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna, these sacrifices." Now, in the first age, Satya Yuga, the sacrifice that was recommended was meditation, because people lived 100,000 years, and they could meditate. Like Vishwamrita Muni, he meditated 60,000 years, right, to attain a higher position. Then the second age, Treta Yuga, the recommended process was performing very, very opulent yajnas, or sacrifices, fire sacrifices, in which the fire sacrifice was so big and so opulent that it connected with the Devalokas. It was not a little fire like we make today. It was a gigantic fire. And it reached, the smoke of that fire reached the heavenly planets. Okay, and then in the third period, the Dwapara Yuga, it's performing very, very opulent deity worship, much more opulent than what we do, much, much more, hundreds, thousands of times more opulent, which is not possible today. And in Kali Yuga, the age that we're in now, the only yajna that can be successfully performed, it's not meditation, it's not these gigantic fire sacrifices, it's not this hugely opulent deity worship, it is Sankirtan Yajna, the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Okay, so then it says, text 11, Devan, Bhavayatanena, and so forth. The demigods being pleased by sacrifice. Now, they're being pleased by the sacrifices performed to Lord Vishnu or Krishna. There are some sacrifices that are offered directly to the devas, but then they take the result of that sacrifice and offer it to Krishna. So Krishna is the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices. Bhoktaram yagitapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatvam santam richati. That's the last verse of the 8th chapter, Bhagavad Gita. It's 8:20. What is it? 8:28. 8:28. 26. Yes. No. It is 8:28. Yes. So that verse says, a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austerities, sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, one attains all these, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. And in the purport it says, the beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. So here we see there are two general paths for self-realization. One is the path of yoga, and it's an eightfold path. You have in other words, you have the yamas and the niyamas and asana and pranayama and pratyahara and dharana and dhyana and then samadhi. Those are the eightfold steps of yoga. And it's not easy. Hardly anyone can achieve success. There might be a few people. And the other process is direct devotional service, which is what Krishna consciousness is all about. And it's rather easy because it's fun. Chanting, dancing, feasting, hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and going on Sankirtan, preaching, holding festivals. It's all fun. It's hard work in a sense, but it's all fun. And it's healthy and it's self-sustaining. Okay, so now this verse is saying, the demigods being pleased by sacrifice will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. There it is. That's the higher technology. The demigods are the order suppliers of everything desirable in this world. So Surya controls the sun. Indra controls the rain. Varuna controls the currents of the ocean, of rivers, and your body, like the blood currents and the heartbeat. And the heart is basically a pump, right? So it's pumping blood through your arteries, veins, and capillaries. And the blood is rejuvenated when it comes to the heart, and it picks up oxygen also, and then delivers that oxygen and nutrients, like the fundamental nutrient that is made from eating food and digesting, and it's glucose. And then the blood delivers the glucose and the oxygen to every cell of the body if the blood circulation is working properly, and that keeps you keeps you alive and healthy. So whenever there's an obstruction of the blood flowing through the body, you get sick, you can get cancer, you can get a stroke, you can get a heart attack because of obstruction of the blood circulating. Okay, now in the purport, it's very important. It says, the demigods are empowered administrators of material affairs. The supply of air, light, water, and all other benedictions for maintaining the body and soul of every living entity is entrusted to the demigods, who are innumerable assistants in different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their pleasures and displeasures are dependent on the performance of yagyas by the human being. Some of the yagyas are meant to satisfy particular demigods, but even in so doing, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in all yajnas, as the chief beneficiary. Lord Vishnu is worshipped in all yajnas as the chief beneficiary. It is stated also in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna himself is the beneficiary of all kinds of yajnas, and it says, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. So that is 8th chapter, 28th verse. Therefore, ultimate satisfaction of the Yagyapati, or the father of and recipient of all yajnas, is the chief purpose of all yajnas, or sacrifices. When these yajnas, or sacrifices, are perfectly performed, naturally the demigods in charge of the different departments of supply are pleased, and there is no scarcity in the supply of natural products. So that was the higher technology. This communication between human beings and God, and then God ordering the demigods to supply everything desirable for people to live prosperously, healthy, happy, and attain liberation at the end of this life. Okay, so performance of yajnas, meaning these sacrifices, has many side benefits, ultimately leading to liberation from material bondage. By the performance of yajnas, all activities become purified, as it is stated in the Vedas. And it has a verse, Ahara Sutho Sattva Sudhi Sattva Sudho Dhruva Smriti Smriti Lambe Sarva Grantinam Vipra Mokshaha. By performance of yajnas, in other words, Sankirtan yajna, right? That's the only one that can be performed successfully in this age. So when we chant, we have congregational chanting in the temple. That is one aspect of Sankirtan yajna. When we go out on the streets and chant Hare Krishna, that is a bigger example of Sankirtan yajna. By performance of Sankirtan yajna, one's eatables become sanctified. And by eating sanctified foodstuffs, one's very existence becomes purified. By the purification of existence, finer tissues in the memory become sanctified. And when the memory is sanctified, one can think of the path of liberation. And all these, combined together, lead to Krishna consciousness, the great necessity of present-day society. So here we see Krishna consciousness is the only religion that you can attain perfection by eating. But it has to be prasadam, not just, meat and fish and eggs. Those are forbidden things. Okay, because you see, by performing Harinam Sankirtan, or congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, offering your food to Krishna, and only offering Krishna whatever food he likes, not, and then he gives it back as his prasadam. So there are many side benefits of these types of sacrifices. And that is that when you eat sanctified foodstuffs or prasadam, one's very existence becomes purified. And first the eatables become sanctified. And then one's very existence becomes purified. And by purification of existence, the finer tissues in the memory, we're talking about the gray matter, right, become sanctified. In other words, your memory becomes sanctified. And when memory is sanctified, one can think of the path of liberation, and all these combined together lead to Krishna consciousness, the great necessity of present-day society. Yeah. So, then, text 12, Istan Boga Hivo Deva Dashyante Yagya Bhavitaha Ter Datan Apraday Yabyo Yobunte Stina Eva Sa. So it says, in charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being sanctified by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So now we understand why people are suffering. They're getting these beneficial things from the demigods, but they're not engaged in Harinam Sankirtan Yagya, offering thanks, being, let's say, reconnaissant of the hand that feeds you. There's a saying in English, he who bites the hand that feeds him will suffer. Right? So basically we're biting the hands that are feeding us. The demigods who have been ordered by Krishna to supply everything that we need, but we're not making any reconnaissance of it, or not being thankful and not being cognizant of. So we're biting the hand that's feeding us. So, what does this mean exactly, that the demigods will supply everything we need? Well, I was talking to my new son-in-law, who is a mining expert. And he learned all about the science of mining in Australia. And he goes all over the world at different places and helps them understand why they're having problems with their mine. Not the mind, but the mine, right? Right. They have problems with their mind also, but he's not an expert in that yet. So he told me, he lived in Australia, at least 6-7 years, getting his PhD in mining. He told me that in Australia, they were easily finding large rocks of pure gold on the surface of the earth. Because the earth was just throwing it up. When we say earth, who are we talking about? Bhumi Devi. See, when people were following Sanatana Dharma, or this communication with Krishna, and then Krishna ordering the demigods to supply things easily, things were easy. They didn't have to dig into the earth. They didn't have to have mines, and dig into the crust of the earth. They didn't have to get petroleum. By the way, there was no petroleum 1,000 years ago in India. How were they so prosperous, right? There's no petroleum. There's no cars. There are no big trucks. There are no electricity. They're the richest country in the world. They're the healthiest and the most prosperous country in the world. They had this higher technology. They didn't have to dig in the ground to get gold or jump into the ocean to find pearls. All these things were being thrown on the surface of the earth by the demigods, by Bhumi Devi and the demigods. And he told me, he said, look, we studied, I studied carefully, the history of mining in Australia. He said, but previously, they were finding gold right on the surface of the earth. They didn't have to dig at all for it. See? And it was like that all over the world. But as soon as people started, ignoring the easy process of life given by Krishna, everything has become very difficult. And the demons, they were digging the earth and digging the crust of the earth. I mean, Ravana, he built a whole tunnel from Lanka to Brazil, right through the core of the earth, you see, so that he could mine gold there and bring it back. So the demons were the ones that were engaged in material science in the past and now in the future. But the devotees were not. They had this higher technology. Okay, so on the purport it says, the demigods are the authorized supply agents on behalf of the Supreme Personality Godhead Vishnu. Therefore, they must be satisfied by the performance of prescribed yagyas. In the Vedas, there are different kinds of yagyas prescribed for different kinds of demigods, but all are ultimately offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, or Krishna. For one who cannot understand what the personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to demigods is recommended, according to the different material qualities of the persons concerned. Different types of yajnas are recommended in the Vedas. Worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely according to the different qualities. For example, the meat eaters are recommended to worship the goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature. And before the goddess, the sacrifice of animals is recommended. But for those who are in the mode of goodness, the transcendental worship of Vishnu is recommended. But ultimately, all yajnas are meant for gradual promotion to the transcendental position. For ordinary men, at least 5 yajnas, known as Pancha Mahayajna, are necessary. One should know, however, that all the necessities of life that the human society requires are supplied by the demigod agents of the Lord. No one can manufacture anything. Take, for example, all the eatables of human society. These eatables include grains, fruits, vegetables, milk, sugar, etc., for the persons in the mode of goodness, and also eatables for the non-vegetarians, like meats, none of which can be manufactured by men. Then again, well, except if you're an idiot like Bill Gates, who's invested a huge amount of money to create artificial meat produced in laboratories, and they're going to start serving it, right? So, I mean, but even the artificial meat, I mean, you should look it up right now. I'm pretty sure they start from real meat to make the artificial meat. I'm not sure. See if you can find. Huh? No. The artificial meat is real meat, or, I mean, false meat, but it's, I think it starts from meat, and then they do something to it.
Animal cells.
What does it say?
It's cultured from animal cells.
Yeah, see, it's cultured from animal cells.
Yeah, Maharaj, they say fake meat fall into 2 categories: plant-based proteins and cell-based proteins.
No,
Cell.
Gates is into cell-based proteins. Yeah. That's why I said he's an idiot. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, Bill Gates and Elon Musk now Elon Musk is right now working on chips put into the brain. And Gates is working on some kind of technology that you can use to support the brain. I mean, they're both playing around with the brain of people. And basically, it's the ultimate control of people. Right? I mean, these are demons. They're nonsense people. They want to control everybody. Okay, so it says here, one should know, however, that all the necessities of life that the human society requires are supplied by the demigod agents of the Lord. No one can manufacture anything. Take, Take, for example, all the eatables of human society. These eatables, including grains, fruits, vegetables, milk, sugar, etc., for the persons in the mode of goodness, and also eatables for the non-vegetarians, like meats, none of which can be manufactured by men. Then again, take, for example, heat, light, water, air, etc., which are also necessities of life. None of these can be manufactured by the human society. Without the Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall, breeze, etc., without which no one can live. Obviously, our life is dependent on supplies from the Lord. Even for our manufacturing enterprises, we require so many raw materials like metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, and so many essentials, all of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord with the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely liberation from the material struggle for existence. This aim of life is attained by performance of yajnas. If we forget the purpose of human life and simply take supplies from the agents of the Lord for sense gratification and become more and more entangled in material existence, which is not the purpose of creation, certainly we become thieves, and therefore we are punished by the laws of material nature. A society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life. In other words, they don't aim to have eternal life. They're trying something impossible to make the body, the material body, eternal, which is not possible, right? So this is what's happening today. You have people like Gates and Elon Musk and others. They're trying to do things that are impossible according to the laws of material nature. They're wasting people's money and time, and they're basically cheating governments by promising things that they can never really achieve, but they get funding for it. And because they ignore the Vedic scriptures, the solution to everything they're trying to do has already been given and already proven, right? But no, they want to do it by themselves so they can make money, right? So we see it's a hopeless situation. And young kids are being fooled. Your kids are being fooled, thinking, oh, I got to get a degree in this or a degree in that. It's a waste of time. Here's the highest technology. This is what made India rich and prosperous, right? And help people go back to Godhead easily in one lifetime. This is what we should be doing, right? So therefore it says, a society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life. The gross materialists, thieves, have no ultimate goal of life. They are simply directed to sense gratification, nor do they have knowledge of how to perform yagyas. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yagya, namely the Sankirtan yagya, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. There it is. 3 verses that explains the solution to all life's problems. It's right there in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, what's amazing is, and this is something I learned in India, it's in the Tirupavai also of Goda Devi, of Andal. In the 3rd Parashram, she explains science. It's amazing. I'm gonna talk about this in the next couple lectures. So, and she is the bridge between the South Indian Vaishnavas and the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Okay, so there's another thing I learned while I was in India, or developed a little bit more. What has destroyed people and the environment of Bharat? Okay, now I made a long list after being in Bharat for 15 days and noticing things, right? Number 1 is dalda and maida. Number 2 is coffee and tea. Number 3 is liquor, beer, wine, etc. Number 4 is pharmaceutical medicines. Number 5, cigarettes and other intoxicants. Number 6, plastics and all forms of inorganic chemicals like pesticides, preservatives, etc. All forms of allopathic and some homeopathic medicines, including radiation therapy, chemotherapy, etc. All toxic materials in the home, such as Clorox, poisons for cockroaches, etc. Synthetic perfumes and fragrances, buses, trucks, cars, and their exhaust. Industrial waste entering rivers and also poisoning groundwater. Atomic waste products and radiation. Products like insect repellents and mothballs. Now, this is a statistic. Food poisoning in India, as of 30th June 2022, Ronit Kumar Singh has written an article and says 2 million deaths every year in India due to contaminated food and water. I told you that The statistics in India are much bigger than here. Those statistics, you have to double or triple them. You know, this is what's happening in India. It's a very unhealthy place to live right now. And because of all these things. And, you know, you try and convince people to give up dalda and maida, you know, they'll argue with you. Or coffee and tea, they'll argue with you. You know, they can't do it. What? You can't do it? You're killing yourself. So this is it's not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there's more things. But these are a lot of main things. And, I mean, you come from India. Does this make sense? Yeah. It's killing the people.
Even pesticides, or fertilizer pesticides.
Yeah. Yeah. It's killing people. And the food there is not good because they're growing it with pesticides and other poisonous things. Right. Yeah. Amla muraba. Oh, by the way, I know how to use the amla correctly. I learned this while I was in India. So, you get the amla, right? It's in season right now. And you can get it also in up the bazaar. It's frozen amla. So, you cut it up. You take out the seed. They sell it in two ways in Apna Bazaar, the already cut or the whole. So anyway, you get rid of the seed, cut it up in little pieces, blend it with either any one of the fruits that you want. Like right now they have this fantastic mango in season. It's just starting. It's very delicious, you know. And they import some of it here. It's a little bit expensive. But, it's the Indian mango. I forget the name of it. Yeah, Alfonso. Yeah, it's very delicious, right? You just blend it with Alfonso mango. You won't even notice the bitterness of the. You won't even notice the bitterness of the amla. It's nectar. And there's no preservative. It's fresh. You can drink it every day. You know. So, and there are other things too. I mean, I learned a lot of things this time in India. Yeah, we don't need all these preservatives. We don't need all this junk, you know. But yet, it has become the standard of the food in India. It's unbelievable. Right? So we have to change things. And we have to go back to the original technology that made India rich, prosperous, happy, kept their families together, and they produced their own food. They didn't import anything. They exported, but they didn't import anything. They had everything they needed. You know, sometimes people living in the inlands, they had to get salt from the people living on the seashore. But that was all natural. And there are mines also that you can get salt from. You know, so anyway, these are some of the things that I experienced in India. Okay, so then I have homework for everybody. It's a project. It's called the Prabhupada Project. This is homework for next week. So when I was I'm giving some classes there, I found some interesting things. Some things I knew already, but other things I had forgotten, so I relearned them. So anyway, these are Prabhupada stories. So the homework is collect as many Prabhupada stories as you can, and there's plenty of them on the internet. Stories and proverbs, and we can start making a whole big list of them. So I have a few interesting stories by Prabhupada, one that you'll be surprised by. Prabhupada says, God is a spirit or a soul. I am a spirit, or you are a spirit also. You also have a soul. So both of them are I. I am this, I am that, right? That's your identity. But God's power and your power are different. God said, let there be creation. There was creation. You say, let there be one Japati, but there will be no Japati. Unless you work. So God can do it just by saying, and you have to work. You can't even make one Japati. That's a great saying, huh? Then another thing, you're going to be surprised now. Prabhupada made friends with Yogi Bhajan. I don't know if you know him or not, but he's a Sikh. And he was some kind of a guru. And Prabhupada said to Yogi Bhajan, they met often in the Berkeley Temple. There's pictures also of Prabhupada with Yogi Bhajan in the Berkeley Temple, in Prabhupada's room. And he said, you Sikhs have always protected us, the Vaishnavas. We are the Brahmins, and you are the Kshatriyas. You are the ones that came to Vrindavan and saved the temples and the devotees. Similarly, when this world becomes more dangerous, our movements will join together again. Wow, an amazing statement. So that was the purpose of the Sikhs, of the Khalsa, was to protect the Hindus. And apparently they did. They came to Vrindavan and fought, I guess, with the Muslims or somebody, and protected the temples and the devotees. So I was surprised when I read that. And then Prabhupada was having physical challenges. Nanda Kumar Das mentioned a doctor in India who said Prabhupada should eat raw food. Prabhupada said, I will do this. Next morning, his breakfast was fruits and milk. Nanda Kumar asked, what will you like for lunch, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, dal, rice, chapati, and halwa. Nanda Kumar Das asked him about the raw diet. And Prabhupada says, since I was a child, I have always loved prasadam, and I am not going to give up now. I will eat prasadam, and Krishna will protect me. Finished. So, Prabhupada said, they are asuras. They have already tried to go to the moon excursion, and it was a failure. Then again they will try and do it. This will be a failure. And again they will do it, and it'll be a failure. Punak punas charvananam. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.30. Repeatedly chewing the chewed, that is their business. So Prabhupada is predicting here, 50 years ago, that they're going to fail on every attempt to go to the moon. Now, they claim to have gone to the moon 52 years ago, and they haven't tried in a manned spaceship. They claim they've sent certain spaceships to the moon. Most of them failed, and they claim a few of them actually landed on the moon. We don't know if that's true or not. But we know one thing is true. They claim they went 52 years ago, and they haven't gone since. And the Chinese have tried to send their rockets to the moon. They failed. The Indians have tried, or they're going to try. It's going to fail. And Prabhupada here predicted that they would fail in every attempt. You see? So it's very interesting. Huh? Well, they were trying to. No one was dumb enough to buy any of that land on the land, the real estate. Okay, so then Prabhupada tells a story. A guru advised his disciples to take food that is in the mode of goodness, or sattvic food, but no fish, no meat, or eggs. Then the disciples thought, wait a minute, the cow is pure. The cow is in the mode of goodness. Cow is sattvika. Every part of the cow is pure. So let us eat cow, sattvika. So later on, when the guru came back, he inquired, have you given up everything bad? The new disciples said, yes, Gurudev. Now we are eating only cow, sattvic food. The guru said, no. Then they thought, then what shall we eat? Oh, Guru Maharaj is most sattvika, so let us eat him. It's a funny story. Prabhupada tells that story. Okay, so those are some. So now your homework for next week is collect as many Prabhupada stories and proverbs. And there's plenty of them on the internet. You can look them up. So you try and collect as many as you can, and we'll discuss them next week. So, are there any questions? Only one?
One question, Maharaj. Today's lecture, in the 312,
Yeah.
for ordinary men, at least 5 yagnas known as Panchamaha Yagna are necessary. What is Panchamaha Yagna, Maharaj?
I'll tell you tomorrow.
Okay, Maharaj.
So, yeah, Maharaj, I think when you use the words like higher technology, I think it just catches the imagination of the people. But everything that you summarize it, even though we read it, it's how to understand that just by simply, being following the yajnas that were already prescribed, all the opulences that people needed were already being provided by the Lord. I think there is another verse that you also covered in the past in Srimad Bhagavatam, that is 1840, that also talks about the same thing. And I think we can also see how Srila Prabhupada's own mission, how it created all the opulence that we are seeing just through the Sankirtana Yajna.
Just through Sankirtan, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, don't forget Sanjay, he demonstrated that connecting to Paramatma, you enter into the Krishna net, and you have vision through the heart, just like Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yat Suraya. Brahma was instructed by Krishna through his heart, right? So this heart connection is internal, let's call it technology, that everybody has, but no one is trying to connect to it. You have to connect to the internet, right? Now we have to connect to Paramatma. And it's possible. So Sanjaya did it. Brahma did it. You can do it. I can do it. We should not think it's impossible. It's not impossible. And there's many instances of this. So this is a higher technology, but it's based on sense purification. It's not based on sense gratification. So everyone, 99.9% of the population of the world today is involved in sense gratification. That's why they're in trouble. If we focus on sense purification, then we can connect to this higher technology. We should think about this very seriously. And you see what happens. Life becomes very easy. And that was the life that was being practiced for millions of years in Bharat. And unfortunately, people have become so misled by modern education that in the land of Bharat, they've gone the opposite way. And because of that, look at all the misery that's there. 2 million people a year die of food or water poisoning in India. That's a huge number, isn't it?
Yes. I think another a point that may be worthwhile highlighting is that even though the material progress that there, this seems like an immediate progress, people are thinking, but we're actually stealing. So it's actually,
No, we are thieves.
yeah, we are thieves. So that's the
They're not offering anything
second.
back to the Lord.
So as a result, it is going to be only snatched away, and the misery is going to come, obviously. I think
Misery
that's
is there already. You don't have to, it's not something in the future, it's already there. It's already there. If you, and it's here also. Every day now you're hearing of someone who's getting killed by gun violence. Every day. And all kinds of crazy things are happening in this country now. And the war in Ukraine is going on, and it's going to get worse. So, you see, there are no solutions if we follow the Asuric technology. There's only a solution if we follow the Vedic technology. We have to become very serious about this, because why wait to the last moment when it's too late? Why not prepare now and have what you would call a contingency plan? Look that word up, contingency plan. We have to have a contingency plan to save the people in case of a major catastrophe. What does it say?
So a plan designed to take a possible future event or circumstance into account.
Yep, there you go. What's the probable future event? One atomic bomb on the United States could put the whole country into chaos. One atomic bomb, And you have crazy Kim in North Korea shooting rockets, and he claims he has rockets that can reach the West Coast. You have Putin talking about, if it's necessary, they'll use nuclear weapons. You have nuclear weapons being put in some South American countries now, secretly, to be close to, and you have submarines right on the borders of the United States, nuclear submarines, so the Russians and maybe also the Iranians, So, everyone's getting ready to bomb each other. So all you need is one atomic bomb in the United States. It would cause havoc everywhere. People would freak out. And the only people that have a contingency plan are the politicians. They have the bunkers and all. They've spent millions of dollars building these bunkers. But how about the common people? What's going to happen to them? So we have to have a plan, not only for our community, but for other people also. So fortunately, most bombs are going to be directed toward military installations and big cities. But they're not going to throw bombs on the country unless there's a military set up there. But anyway, I'm not trying to put people in the let's say panic state. But there's got to be a contingency plan of how to develop these self-sufficient farms. So, because that's the only sustainable model for the future. It's not sustainable living in the big cities. And big cities, look what's happening, defunding the police. They don't prosecute crimes of $1,000 or less. There's another thing too. Now, squatters, they break into a house that's for rent, and once they're in there, you can't get them out legally. You have to go, and there's such a backlog of court cases that it could take up to 18 months to get a verdict. And you call the police, they'll come, they say, we can't do anything. You'll have to go through the legal process. Look at it. There's articles about this, right? Look it up right now.
In fact, I think in Tsunami should have happened.
Of course, it's happening everywhere.
One house where somebody, the owner was overseas,
Yeah.
so they just came in and
Broke the locks, put their own locks in, and started living there, and they can't get them out.
parents and all that stuff. It was illegal.
You can't get the person out. Yeah, it's happening all over the place. Look it up. What's it say?
So there's something called squatters have legal rights.
Yes, the squatters, not the owners, the squatters.
No, even in India also the same.
Yeah, you can add.
If you stay there, there are lands and all, and government decided if you stay there for more than 14 years, then the land is yours.
Yeah.
So
So the Washington law allows squatters to live in another person's property if the actual property owner doesn't take legal actions to force an eviction process.
Yeah, but the eviction process can take 18 months,
Yeah.
and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah. And additionally, the squatters can claim full legal ownership of the real estate property through adverse possession. There is another possibility where they can actually claim ownership. Yeah.
Yeah, so now it's dangerous renting properties. You know, before everyone would think, well, I'll buy this house and I'll rent it out. You know, I'll make a lot of money. It depends who your client is. You know, but you get a bad client, and they can take
you have
over
to
your
account
property.
for the legal costs.
That's why a lot of people now are not putting houses up for rent. They're trying to sell them before. And look what just happened, you know. This railroad explosion of chemicals in this town has wiped out the town. They can't sell their houses, they can't move, and they're getting sick, and they could die, right? And you know, Crazy Joe didn't do anything about it. The politicians have not done anything so far. Now it's becoming a major issue. And the
they're saying, Maharaj, that we don't need a terrorist attack anymore. You know, these kind of stuff. Because there was a similar incident in another town also.
yeah, the second one.
Somebody sabotaged. Yeah, somebody sabotaged that.
Yeah. Yeah, you see this chaos in this country right now, you know, and it's getting worse. That's why we have to get more farms and prepare for an emergency if there is one. But anyway, emergency or no emergency, we should do it anyway because we should have self-sufficient communities. That's the only sustainable model today. Eventually, I'm telling you right now, you're all going to lose your jobs. You're all going to lose those IT jobs because the AI is going to take over. It's just a question of time now. They're working very quickly to do it. Now, you might say, well, there'll be new jobs open. Yeah, you'll be a babysitter for a robot. But then they'll get a robot babysitter for the robot, see? So
I think you even mentioned this almost like 4 or 5 years ago when the technology industry is in the best heydays of this one. You predicted that, you know, both the AI will come and jobs will go, but the technology itself is temporary. And now we are already seeing, you know, what happened in the last few months.
Yeah.
About 100,000 people are
let me tell
in the
you,
market, right?
the Bill Gates, the Elon Musk, they have no mercy.
Correct.
They'll go any way that they can make more money, you know, and they don't care that people lose their jobs, you know, and they say, well, let the government pay them, you know, a stipend every month, you know, $1,000 free money. You see, it's mean and it's nasty, and it's going to happen. So just like I saw the Spring District was going to become a major place, right? So I bought that building, and everyone thought I was crazy, and that I was jeopardizing the temple, blah, blah, blah. But now you see what's happened, right? That place is really like a hot place. It's right in the center of that whole development. But I can see now that, this AI is going to take away your jobs. It's just a matter of time, and therefore you have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, what are you going to do, right? A lot of people will commit suicide or they'll go crazy. Now, you're seeing people go crazy now. They're losing their jobs. They're taking a gun and going into the office and killing people, right? And then because of divorce also, there's a lot of men, they're killing their wife and the wife's family and the lawyer and so forth. So there's a lot of crazy things happening now because of deep frustration. Okay, so we're not going to be frustrated. We're going to keep hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We have the solution, but we have to be serious. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol.
The four yugas we talked about, and in the 312 we can see that Mahaprabhu has mentioned Sankirtana Yagna is for. How about the other three yugas? Is there a relation like we can look up to?
Yeah, of course there was. The yagya was the way to communicate with Krishna and the devatas.
So in yesterday's Sankirtana, we were distributing the cookies, and there was this, I'm guessing 70 plus. So she was going, no, 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 no. And then she came back. She said to me, Jesus loves you all, but Jesus doesn't love what you're doing.
Yeah, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Oh, by the way, I have a whole program for Christianity now. No, because the Christians do not actually know who Jesus is. They don't understand. And that's because they chose to try and understand Jesus through Greek philosophy. So there are many mistakes in the practice of Christianity today. Like, for example, they still don't believe animals have a soul. What? You see? And they don't know who Jesus' father is. They represent him as an old man. You go to the Sistine Chapel, and he's got white hair, wrinkles, and it's an old man. So I'm gonna write down all the things, because Christianity is spreading in India. The reason it's spreading in India is because they're failing in the United States and Europe. That's why. So they have to be successful somewhere. So now they choose India as they want to take over the country, they and the Muslims. So we're going to start preaching to the Christians in India and explain to them, look, you've been fooled. They're not teaching you real Jesus, love of Jesus. And it's a fact. They teach the Hindus that convert to hate Hinduism, right? They're teaching hate. They're not teaching love. So we're going to, but even here in the United States, they're not teaching pure Christianity. Jesus was a devotee, and he's the Son of God, right? So they don't understand those things. So I'm going to write out the whole thing, and proactively preach. They're doing padayatra right now in Tamil Nadu, with these two big bulls. They're gigantic bulls. I told them, look, if you go into the Christian towns and you go into the Muslim areas with deities, it's not going to work. They're not going to accept anything you're doing. I said, when you go into the Christian towns, you just have a big picture of Jesus Christ and hide the deities. You go into the Muslim area, you can't have a picture of Muhammad. They don't accept that. But there's a certain writing in Arabic that represents the Quran. That's what you put, instead of the deities, you put that there. And then you have to know something about Islam. So one thing I know about Islam, at least they pray 5 times a day. That's better than the Hindus, right? So we should recognize what's a good thing that they're doing, right? And not think that they're all bad, right? Because we have to be able to resonate with people, whether they're Christian or Muslim or atheist, that are somewhat in the mode of goodness. And those people can be favorable to what we're doing, even though they have a different religion. And that's a new way of preaching that I think we can develop, especially in India, but even here. So we have to be a bigger expert on who Jesus is and what is Muhammad's teachings, right? And that way we'll be able to connect with these people. So it's just, we'll develop that soon. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, then we'll stop right there. Thank you for, yeah. That lady didn't understand anything, but did she take a cookie?
No,
No, no,
she did not.
no.
No, she just said that and left Prabhu. She just walked off.
See, now I'm going to give you the what you need to answer her.
That's what my question was.
Yeah, I'm going
Maharaj.
to give you what
Yeah.
you need to answer her.
Yeah.
You know, and other people like that.
Maharaj, in our house, when you had actually done the Griha Pravesh, so on our door, you have Krishna's photograph that you had pasted on it, and then we have put a wreath against it. So a few days back, some missionaries came, you know. A few days back, so some missionaries came, and we were not at home, so they were ringing the bell, and I was able to see from the, from my phone. So, and then they did something at the door, and then they left. I was like curious as to what they did. So when he came back home, and then I saw that they had put a picture of Jesus, right? But the interesting thing is they had put the picture of Jesus right below Krishna. And I said, okay, yeah,
Well,
that is
that's
what.
correct.
That's correct. Yeah, so I said, okay, that's fine. But I'm sure they didn't understand who Krishna was, but they were trying to.
They don't understand that Krishna is the father of Jesus. They don't understand that. We're gonna make that clear, right? Okay, who's gonna sing?
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Bando mui savadhana mate.
Bando mui savadhana.
Bando mui savadhana mate. Jahara prasade bhai e bhava toriya jai. Jahara
prasade bhai e bhava toriya jai.
Krishna prapti hoye jaha aite. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Kuriya Aikya. Guru Mukha Padma Chite Te করি হো মনে আশা श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति श्री गुरु
चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति
जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जाह होइते अविद्या विनाश जते वेदे गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना हा प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पद छया हा प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पद छया एबे जास घोषो त्रिभुवाना एबे जास घोषो त्रिभुवाना हा प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पद छया प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पद छया एबे जस घोषो त्रिभुवाना एबे जस त्रिभुवाना प्रभु पादो इलो शरणा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय गुरुदेवा 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 नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामीति नामिने नमः Swami नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिव सदी गौर भक्त वृंद जय श्री चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिव सदी गौर भक्त हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा हरि बोल कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
Vajragachasta Tirasatira Shri Shishimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Rantakoti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Ramacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Shikoho, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapuri Ram Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ram Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda. All glories to Samudra, all glories to Samudra, all glories to Samudra, all glories to Shiguru and Shiguranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic, permanent. Friend of the poor and Lord of the bastard, O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Hari.